The Democratic Republic of Congo celebrates a new president while keeping a sharp eye on the old one. A Zimbabwe singer fires a musical warning shot against repression by security forces. And entrepreneurs promote confidence in South African black girls with dolls. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makamure. This is Africa 54. A new era is underway in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Newly minted President Felix Tshisekedi is appealing for unity Friday on his first full day as head of state. Tshisekedi's swearing in Thursday marked the first peaceful transfer of power in DRC history. The 55-year-old leader of the opposition Union for Democracy and Social Progress Party is the son of Etienne Tshisekedi, Congo's longtime opposition leader. He succeeds President Joseph Kabila, who led Congo for 18 years. Kabila remained in office more than 2 years beyond his mandate, as the Electoral Commission struggled to organize new elections. After a contentious, chaotic election, the DRC is now under new leadership. But is it really a fresh start? Some analysts say no. VOA's Anita Powell has more from Johannesburg.
A historic day for the Democratic Republic of Congo. President Joseph Kabila welcomed the nation's first peaceful power transfer in 6 decades, with the swearing-in of Félix Tshisekedi.
Il en est en outre symptomatique de la cristallisation croissante de la culture.
It is also symbolic of the growing crystallization of democratic culture in our country that the lucky elected official, the beneficiary of this historic transfer as the head of the state, came from the opposition party.
During Thursday's ceremony, Tshisekedi said he felt ill and had to sit down, but soon returned to the podium to complete his inaugural speech. Opposition presidential candidate Martin Fayulu objected to Tshisekedi being declared winner of the December 30th election and maintains he actually won the poll. The influential Catholic Church backed that claim. Fayulu's supporters protested earlier this week after his bid for a recount was rejected by the nation's highest court. Now, as Tshisekedi, the son of a former opposition leader, takes the helm, his critics say they want to see the new president step up.
I think he has an opportunity to express himself, at least to show. He has shown in the past that he tends to be concessional or listen to his buzz, as he call it. If that is how he's going to run the country, I think he will have to be able to not only listen to as many people as possible, because people will try and control him, but I think he needs to be able to show us that he's a president who can take decisions and stand by them.
Tshisekedi's biggest challenge, says analyst Stephanie Walters, will be Kabila himself.
He doesn't have to cede a whole lot of power. He will become a senator, so he will be influential in the Senate. He will still be the president of the largest coalition, political coalition in the country, with a parliamentary majority and a grip on the provincial assemblies, the 26 provincial assemblies, and on those governors.
But even the harshest skeptics say they have some hope.
We know that the elephant in the room is Kabila. Kabila hasn't left. And as long as Kabila is still in the country and in the deal, he will still be controlling everything. And that's how we are we're optimistic about the country. But about his Felix Tshisekedi's presidency, he has work to do.
But maybe that can wait until tomorrow. Today, at least, some Congolese are happy to celebrate. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
Officials in the DRC are extremely worried over the ongoing Ebola outbreak. The World Health Organization says the deadly disease is spreading southward into an area with high security risks. Now, the fight against Ebola depends on tracing people who may have had contact with the disease and could become sick and further spread the highly contagious disease. Most of the cases since the start of the year have been in the Katwa health zone, where the WHO says Ebola workers have faced pockets of community mistrust, and most of the people getting sick are not on the list of people suspected of coming into contact with Ebola. WHO spokeswoman Fidela Shaib talks about fighting Ebola.
The Ministry of Health and WHO and partners have continued to face challenges in the containment and control of the Ebola virus disease in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The number of reported cases increased during recent weeks, most notably from two new health zones, Katwa Health Zone, where response teams have faced pockets of community mistrust. The outbreak also has extended southwards to Kayina Health Zone, a high security risk area. As of 22nd January this year, there have been a total of 713 cases of Ebola, 664 confirmed, 49 probable, including 439 deaths. The overall case fatality ratio is high, it's 62%.
Well, more than 60,000 people in Congo have been vaccinated, as well as 2,500 in Uganda, one of the countries at a very high risk from the disease. Now, the leader of Sudan's largest opposition party, Sadiq al-Mahdi, is calling on the government to bow to mass protests and resign. Al-Mahdi addressed hundreds of supporters in a mosque across the River Nile from Khartoum Friday. Hundreds of protesters then marched through Omdurman after Friday prayers. Overnight Thursday, protests raged across Sudan in the most widespread anti-government unrest since it began in mid-December. Protests raged across Sudanese cities on Thursday, and two more demonstrators died in the most widespread rallies of anti-government unrest that began last month. The 24-year-old man died from his wounds in Omdurman, a city across the Nile from the capital Khartoum, where crowds were railing against Sudan's three-decade ruler Omar al-Bashir. That took the official death toll from unrest since December 19 to 29, according to a government investigatory committee spokesman, Amer Mohammed Ibrahim. Rights groups put the total at more than 40. In Khartoum, security forces fired tear gas at protesters in various neighborhoods. At night, smoke wafted over Khartoum, fires burned, and a main street was blocked. Triggered by a worsening economic crisis, protests calling for Bashir to step down have spread into the most sustained challenge yet to his rule. Well, for more insight on the unrest in Sudan, I'm joined in studio by Niemat Ahmadai, a founder of the Darfur Women Action Group. Ms. Ahmadai, welcome to Africa 54 after a very long time.
For having me.
You're welcome. Now, we have seen the sustained protests today. What are you hearing on Friday? Because we heard about big protests this morning, but have they held on, or did they have any effect?
Well, the protest is still going on as the evening was approaching in Sudan. People are still protesting and determined to continue to protest, and some people even decided to having a sit-in for an overnight.
Overnight into Saturday. Now, many have said, well, this protest may be just a waste of time because Mr. Bashir has a strong support from the military, and unless the military turns against him, street protests cannot move him. What are you expecting yourself?
Well, I think the fact that Mr. al-Bashir still have a strong military is not true. In most part, they have depended on the militias. And the Sudanese army in some cities, they clearly stood in the side of people and protected the people. And they remain mostly neutralized. But right now they have a shadow militias that the members of the party who have been militarized, and the other militias like the Janjaweed leaders who they depended on throughout the crisis time, like period of the crisis in Darfur as of until today. So they have been using those militias to respond to people, and also some of the police forces. But I don't think as of right now the government of Sudan has a strong military.
Yes. Now, the government of Sudan is facing some serious economic challenges. Some of it were related to the separation of South Sudan, and therefore they don't have as much revenue. What is the alternative? I mean, what can anybody else do that will make things different for the people of Sudan?
Well, I think the alternative is first look at the cause, and then what the alternative can come. The reason people are, the economic is collapsing in Sudan is that the government has put more than 10 million people to become dependent on international aid assistance. Continue to attack the people of Darfur, holding more than 3 million people hostage in camps. Many more fled, and then attacking the people of Nuba Mountain and South Kordofan. These are the people who are farmers and herders who have been contributing for more than 65% to the national income, to the general income in Sudan, and over 40% of the contribution come from livestock from this region. And the gum, actually, that Sudan is contributing about 80% of the total gum Arabic from all over the world, is coming from Darfur and Kordofan. And these people from this region right now, they are unable to farm. They are under threat of security threat attacks. So the alternative is that the government let people live peacefully. Stop killing people, and Bashir should go away.
When Khartoum was fighting against the South Sudanese people thought that was a religious kind of war. It was Christian versus Muslim. But now Bashir is dealing with people who are mostly Muslim. So what is the issue here?
The issue with South Sudan and Darfur was that they use ethnicity to discriminate against people. Being an Arab considered to be superior, and being an indigenous African, you will be looked at the inferior in Sudan. And that is how Bashir has played. But now the suffering has entered into every single household in Sudan. And people realize that it's not about Darfur, it's not about South Kordofan or Blue Nile or the South anymore. That this is a dictator who have used every resources in the country and every effort to sustain his seat without caring about people.
Well, we'll be watching the developments there, and maybe we'll call you back again to give us some updates. We do appreciate very much.
Thank you.
Your perspectives are really very useful. That's Nemat Ahmadai, who is the founder of the Darfur Women Action Group. Now, a popular Zimbabwean singer has released a song condemning the country's security forces for their brutality in stifling last week's protest over a massive fuel price hike announced by President Emerson Mnangagwa. The 25-year-old artist wrote the song after his pregnant wife was tear-gassed and couldn't breathe properly, scaring the couple that she would suffer a miscarriage. As Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare, the song's release has raised fears over the singer's safety.
Obey Makamure, better known as Tocky Vibes, has released a song denouncing Zimbabwe's security forces for the way they brutally crushed last week's fuel price protests. I will not respect soldiers and police anymore, he sings. He grew up wanting to be a soldier, he says, and understands the great responsibility they have for protecting citizens. But all this changed when his wife was tear-gassed.
Whether I like it or not, I'm involved. Saga, we don't have to be ignorant about other people's lives, Maize. I can't be that person. My music is about the people. It's not about me. If my life is for my own security, then it's not worth it.
Makamure says since he released the song earlier this week, friends and relatives have been calling, fearing for his safety. He maintains his songs are not political.
I'm not into politics. I'm for the people, you know. The army it's our security, and the police, it's our security. So anytime we feel like they are abusing our rights, we should be able to say no. See, even if we die for saying no, it's better than just being like a slave, you know.
Who still has a bullet? On Tuesday, President Emerson Mnangagwa promised to roll heads of those responsible in the security forces for committing acts of brutality during the protests. The government-appointed Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission says at least 80 people died because of excessive use of force by the army and police.
It is acknowledged that property, including a police station, police vehicles, and shops were destroyed and vandalized or looted. This, however, did not justify torture of citizens by the security forces as the right to freedom from torture is one right that cannot be derogated from under any circumstances.
While Zimbabweans wait for the government to deal with the rights violators, musician Tocky Vibes has this advice to Zimbabwe's security forces.
We need peace, love, and unity. Make sure all of those who are suffering, they are safe. Because those who are rich, some of them, they can protect themselves. But we, the poor, the disadvantaged ones, we need your help. Protect us.
Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
3 white men convicted of a 2016 plot to bomb an apartment complex in the midwestern U.S. state of Kansas, home to Somali immigrants and their mosque, are being sentenced in a federal court Friday. The trio, described by prosecutors as members of a right-wing militia group, were found guilty in April of conspiring to use a weapon of mass destruction and conspiring to violate the civil rights of their intended victims. Prosecutors say the men plotted to detonate explosive-laden vehicles at the complex in Garden City to kill the occupants. The convicted men face a maximum penalty of life in prison for the weapon of mass destruction charge and up to 10 years behind bars for the civil rights violation. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makamure. Still ahead on Africa 54, could dolls help girls embrace their identity? Well, but first, a look at Friday's headlines.
Other countries to do it, and I will do it in my own country. We're making a promise that insecurity of any kind will be tackled.
This year's World Economic Forum Summit in Davos, Switzerland, has notable absentees, including U.S. President Donald Trump, with a backlash against a perceived ruling elite gaining ground in many countries. Some leaders are steering clear of a gathering often seen as an inaccessible club for the world's super rich. But defenders of the annual meeting say it is a vital venue to exchange ideas and discuss urgent issues like climate change. And Ridgewell has more hours of a report now.
On the surface, it's business as usual at Davos. On a sealed-off, snowbound mountaintop, world leaders rub shoulders with global executives, lobbyists and pressure groups.
They're there to do business, they're there to engage in an exchange of ideas, and so I think it's still tremendously important.
But this year, there's no American delegation. President Trump has stayed away amid the US government shutdown. China's President Xi Jinping isn't here. Neither is Britain's Theresa May, nor France's President Emmanuel Macron.
They're tremendously preoccupied with the troubles that they face at home, which isn't a good sign for globalism. The criticism and the critique that surrounds Davos is extraordinary. People say, you know, it's where all those people go to sort of have dinner with each other. It has nothing to do with the rest of us. And of course, it's about a lot more than that, but the optics are tremendously negative at this point in time.
While Davos is sealed off by high security, delegates are well aware of a growing global backlash.
We've had some good economic times. Incomes have gone up in a number of countries, and yet the discontent is deep, and it's threatening our democracies.
The absence of many big players means others have stolen the limelight. Ethiopia has been widely praised for moves to end repression and make peace with Eritrea.
We believe integration must be viewed not just as an economic project, but also as crucial to securing peace and reconciliation in the Horn of Africa.
Other issues, too, have risen up the Davos agenda, notably climate change.
Actually, this is about being on the right side of history. And do you want to be a leader that you look back in time and say that you were on the wrong side of the argument when the world was crying out for a solution?
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that, I think.
But observers say Davos 2019 will likely be remembered for the lack of global leadership.
That space has been vacated. Nobody necessarily even wants to take things forward at the level of providing a vision and a set of tangible policy proposals for how to actually implement a vision that can carry us through a really troubling time.
The lack of such a vision at a time of profound global change has sent a chill far beyond the confines of this winter resort. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
As hundreds of thousands of U.S. government workers missed their second paycheck Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump says he would accept a deal to at least temporarily reopen the federal government if money is earmarked for the U.S.-Mexico border wall he has sought for 2 years. The president floated the proposal Thursday after the Republican-controlled Senate failed to end the shutdown, voting down two competing proposals that would have ended a 34-day impasse of funding for the wall.
One of the ideas suggested is they open it, they pay a sort of a prorated down payment for the wall, which I think people will agree that you need. You need the wall. In fact, I see a lot of the Democrats are almost all of them are breaking, saying, look, walls are good, walls are good. Big difference from what you had 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Well, but not enough. Democrats supported the Republican bill in the Senate, incorporating Trump's $5.7 billion request for wall construction. In addition to limited immigration reforms and government funding through the current fiscal year, and the measure failed 50-47, falling short of the 60 necessary votes to pass. The Democratic proposal also failed by a vote of 52-44, despite pulling 6 Republican votes. The measure contained no border security or immigration provisions and was designed to reopen shuttered federal agencies and provide a 2-week window for congressional leaders and the White House to negotiate a deal on immigration. One Democratic congressman accused Republicans of not working in good faith to reopen the government.
We want to negotiate, Mr. Whip. We want to get this resolved. But we're not going to pretend this is business as usual. This is the longest shutdown in history, and your side has consistently voted against every bill that we have offered to open up government.
The shutdown has followed 800,000 government employees, with just over half of them, 420,000, forced to continue working without pay, some relying on food banks and the generosity of their community to get by. Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. A South African startup has created a new range of African dolls, hoping to empower African girls and capitalize on growing demand for the toys on the continent. Sibale means we are beautiful in the local Zulu language. The collection was created in 2016 to help build confidence in African children by gifting them dolls they can relate to. They also sport fashionable outfits that are designed and stitched at a workshop in Pretoria. The collection features 5 different dolls, including an Indian doll named Neha and a newly launched doll called Zuri, who was born with albinism. The company also manufactures clothing for the dolls and merchandise, which include boots, umbrellas, and bags for children. Well, next up, like most children, 10-year-old Zachary Pambuka's love is ice cream. And like most, he eats it with the help of a 3D printed prosthetic arm. It works using a pair of wires placed on the skin that activate the arm to move when the child flexes their muscles. The first version of limitless arm can only move all its fingers at the same time and use a bulky large battery. The parts are manufactured on a 3D printer. Engineers get feedback from the prosthetics users, enabling them to constantly improve their limb's design. The new version of the arm will be able to move its fingers and thumbs independently with silicone fingertips for better grip. Well, and finally, a new technology is turning pulp into renewable gasoline in Sweden. Scientists at Lund University have been working closely with Swedish paper mills to utilize black liquor residue created after making paper and pulp. A complex organic polymer called lignin is extracted from the liquor, and through purification and filtration processes, it is turned into a cleaner gasoline, diesel-like mixture. For now, the fuel-created will only be able to service a fraction of the demands of Swedish motorists. But like other developing renewable technologies, could help humanity wean ourselves off our reliance on fossil fuel. And that's what's trending today. Now, we end today's broadcast with internationally renowned Zimbabwean musician Oliver Mutukudzi, affectionately known as Tuku, who died on Wednesday. Some time back, Tuku visited the Voice of America and performed for Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night and a peaceful weekend.
Musha ungave musha, musha musha, navaenze.